بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
When we speak of the Islamic months, certain ones shine immediately in the mind: Ramadan with its fasting and its nights of prayer, Dhul-Hijjah with its pilgrimage and its days of sacrifice, Muharram with its sacred status and the extraordinary day of Ashura. And then comes the month that follows Muharram, quiet, often overlooked, and persistently misunderstood. That month is Safar. For centuries, people have whispered that Safar is an unlucky month, that calamities descend during it, that weddings should be postponed and journeys avoided. But what does Islam actually say? What is the truth about this month that has attracted so much fear and so much superstition? Today we uncover that truth. We will explore Safar's name and its origins, the significant events that unfolded within it, its genuine importance in the Islamic year, and, most crucially, we will decisively dismantle the myths that have clung to it for so long. Because Safar is not a month of misfortune. It is, like every other month, a creation of Allah, an opportunity for good deeds, reflection, and drawing closer to Him. Let's begin with the name and its origin. The word Safar, in Arabic, carries several layers of meaning, each shedding light on the character this month held in early Arabian life. The most widely accepted origin traces to the verb safira or safra, meaning to be empty or to become vacant. The month received this name because the pre-Islamic Arabs would leave their homes empty during this period after the sacred months had ended. They set out to trade, to raid, or to gather provisions, and the houses of Makkah would stand unoccupied and silent. Hence, Safar, the month of emptiness. The classical Arabic dictionary Lisan al-Arab of Ibn Manjur records this explanation directly. Saifran min al-Mata'i, the house was vacated of its furniture and belongings. Other linguists connect the name to Sufar, yellow, suggesting a reference to the yellowish tinge the desert landscape takes on at this time of year, when the brief greenery of winter has faded and the dunes return to their bare, sun-bleached color. A third meaning connects Safar to the word for journey, Safar. After the 4 sacred months of enforced truce had concluded, the world started moving again. People set out for commerce and conflict alike, and the roads that had fallen quiet during the sacred months filled once more with travelers. Safar was, in this sense, the month when motion returned to Arabian life. Unlike Muharram, Rajab, Dhul-Qa'dah, and Dhul-Hijjah, Safar is not among the 4 sacred months that Allah designated at the creation of the heavens and the earth. In that narrow legal sense, it is an ordinary month. Warfare is not divinely restricted in it, and no specific ritual is tied to it. But as we will see, ordinary months are far from empty of divine purpose. The month of Safar may not occupy the same place in popular consciousness as Ramadan or Muharram, but it witnessed some of the most pivotal moments in the life of the Prophet and the early Muslim community. Let us walk through them. The first event which happened in Safar is the Quraysh's failed assassination of the Prophet. Before the Hijrah could begin, a desperate act of treachery had to be survived. The Quraysh, realizing that the Prophet intended to leave Makkah, gathered their chiefs and hatched a plan. Representatives of each clan would strike him simultaneously, so that responsibility for his blood would be spread across all tribes and the Banu Hashim could not retaliate against any one of them. Allah revealed the plot to His Prophet. On the night of the 27th of Safar, in the 14th year of prophethood, the Prophet instructed his cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib to lie in his bed, wrapped in his green Hadrami cloak, so that the assassins circling the house would believe he was still inside. The Prophet then walked out past them, reciting verses from Surah Yasin as he scattered a handful of dust at their feet. And we have put before them a barrier and behind them a barrier and covered them, so they do not see. Allah sealed their sight, and He passed through them unseen. He made his way to the home of Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, and together, before dawn, they slipped out of Makkah, heading south toward Yemen, in the direction opposite to the one the Quraysh expected, making for the Cave of Thawr in the hills above the city. For 3 days and 3 nights, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Prophet and Abu Bakr remained hidden in that narrow cave. The Quraysh placed a bounty of 100 camels on the Prophet's head and dispatched expert trackers across every road leading out of Makkah. Expert trackers followed the trail all the way to the mouth of the cave. Abu Bakr trembled. "O Messenger of Allah, if one of them were to look down at his feet, he would see us." The Prophet placed his hand gently on his companion and spoke the words that have steadied believers for 14 centuries, "Do not grieve, for indeed Allah is with us." Quran records these words in Surah Al-Tawbah verse 40. Allah had already provided the answer before the fear could take hold. A spider had woven its web across the cave's entrance, and a pair of doves had built a nest at its mouth. The trackers, seeing the web undisturbed and the birds nesting calmly, concluded that no one could have recently entered and moved on. Abu Bakr's son Abdullah brought them news of Makkah each night. His daughter Asma delivered provisions, tearing her own waistband into 2 strips to tie the vessel of food, earning her the title Dhat al-Nitake, she of the 2 belts. The freed slave Amir ibn Fuhair drove his flock over their tracks each morning to erase any trace of movement. After 3 nights, when the search had cooled and their guide Abdullah ibn Uraykit arrived with the camels, the Prophet and Abu Bakr emerged and set out by a coastal route, traveling by night and resting by day. They arrived at Quba, on the outskirts of Medina, on the 8th of Rabi al-Awwal, but the great departure itself, the break from the land of persecution, belongs to the month of Safar. Safar is the month of the great Exodus. It is the month in which the Prophet placed his trust wholly in Allah, walked past his would-be killers unseen, and stepped into the unknown on his way to building the first Muslim community. In Safar, of the 2nd year after the Hijrah, the Prophet led his very first military expedition, the first time he personally commanded a Muslim force in the field. He marched with approximately 60 to 200 men toward the coastal region of al-Abwa, between Makkah and Medina, intending to intercept a Quraysh caravan. The caravan had already passed, and no engagement took place. Instead, the Prophet concluded a peace treaty with the Banu Damrah tribe. This expedition, known as the Battle of al-Abwa or Ghazwat Waddan, was the first time the banner of Islam was raised beyond the bounds of Medina. It was a demonstration to the Arabian Peninsula that the Muslim community in Medina had become a political and military reality, an organized state, capable of initiative, led by a prophet who now held sovereign authority. All of this unfolded in Safar. Some historical accounts record that the marriage of the Prophet's beloved daughter Fatimah al-Zahra to Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with them both, took place in the month of Safar, in the 2nd year after the Hijrah. This union, the beginning of the household through whom the Prophet's lineage would continue and through whom Hassan and Hussein would be born, is a reminder that Safar is not merely a month of hardship and trial. It is also a month in which one of the most blessed marriages in human history is said to have been celebrated. Safar of the 4th year after the Hijrah witnessed 2 of the most heartbreaking tragedies of the prophetic era. A delegation from the tribes of Adal and Karah came to the Prophet and requested that he send teachers to instruct their people in Islam. He sent a group of 6 or 7 companions. When they arrived at a place called Al-Raji, they were betrayed. Their hosts called upon the Banu Lihyan tribe, who surrounded them with armed men. Most of the group refused to surrender and were killed fighting. 2 survivors, Khubab ibn Adi and Jaid ibn al-Datinah, were taken captive to Makkah and sold, where they were later executed. Around the same time, the chief of Banu Amir, Abu Bara, also requested that the Prophet send teachers to his tribe. The Prophet sent 70 men, companions who were huffaz of the Quran, among the finest scholars of the early community. They encamped at a place called Baya Mauna, the well of Mauna, where their host, or rather, his nephew, Amir ibn al-Tufail, summoned surrounding tribes and had them surrounded. They were massacred almost to the last man. Only one, Kabi ibn Jad, survived the initial slaughter, and he later died at the Battle of the Trench. Among the martyrs was Haram ibn Milan, who was struck by a spear and, as blood gushed from his wound, wiped it across his own face, crying, "By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have succeeded." The Prophet was shattered by the loss of these 70 scholars and reciters, the best of their generation. He prayed dua-e-kunut against the perpetrators in his Fajr prayer every morning for an entire month. The Quran descended in grief, "Convey to our people that we have met our Lord, and He is pleased with us, and we are pleased with Him," a verse recited and wept over by the companions before it was later abrogated in its recitation. These martyrs of knowledge gave their lives in Safar. Next event which took place in Safar is the conquest of Khaybar. While the campaign against the fortress of Khaybar began in the month of Muharram, the decisive battles and final conquest occurred in the month of Safar, 7 AH. This was a significant military triumph that dramatically strengthened the Muslim community and solidified the Prophet's position across the Arabian Peninsula. It was also the occasion on which the Prophet gave the standard to Ali ibn Abi Talib, saying the famous words that would be repeated across centuries, "Tomorrow I will give the standard to a man who loves Allah and His Messenger, and whom Allah and His Messenger love, a man who does not flee, through whose hands Allah will grant the conquest." Some historical sources place the Prophet's marriage to Khadija bint Khuwailid, may Allah be pleased with her, in the month of Safar, before the revelation of prophethood, when he was 25 years of age. Whether or not the specific month can be pinned down with certainty across the sources, the significance of this marriage can barely be overstated. Khadija was the first to believe in him, the first to comfort him when revelation came, and the woman who would be his greatest support for 25 years. It was she who took him to her cousin Warqah ibn Nawfal when he trembled with the first revelation. It was she who said the words every uncertain soul longs to hear, "By Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. You uphold the ties of kinship, bear the burdens of others, provide for those who have nothing, honor your guests, and help those struck by genuine hardship." If Safar is indeed the month that hosted the beginning of this bond, it is a month that gave the Prophet his greatest earthly companion. On the first day of Safar, 61 AH, the surviving family members of Hussein ibn Ali, the women, the children, and the Ali ibn Hussein, Zain al-Abidin, were brought as prisoners to the palace of Yazid in Damascus. Their journey from Karbala through Kufa to the Syrian capital carried with it the horror of what had happened on the plains 10 days before, and Zainab bint Ali's fearless address before Yazid's court has been remembered ever since as one of the most powerful pieces of oratory in Islamic history. Sukaina, also known as Sakina, bint Hussein, a daughter of Hussein ibn Ali who survived the events of Karbala and lived into the following generation, is recorded in traditional biographical sources to have passed away on the 10th of Safar, 117 AH, in Medina. The 28th of Safar is recorded in biographical and historical traditions as the date of the death of Hassan ibn Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, the elder grandson of the Prophet, the elder son of Ali and Fatimah, and one of the two whom the Prophet called the leaders of the youth of paradise. He died in 50 AH, widely believed to have been poisoned. His burial in the Baqi cemetery in Medina was accompanied by grief across the community. At the very end of Safar, in the 11th year after the Hijrah, the Prophet Muhammad began to feel the onset of the illness that would lead to his passing. Historical sources, including Al-Tabari and Ibn Sa'd in his Tabqat, note that the first signs of illness appeared in the final days of Safar. After approximately 13 days of sickness, predominantly in the month of Rabi al-Awwal, his blessed soul departed to the highest company on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal. Safar, therefore, marks the beginning of the Prophet's final days on this earth. It is a month of sobering transition, a month that reminds the believer that even the most beloved of Allah's creation is not immune to the turning of the world. Perhaps the most important thing this video can do is address the superstitions that have surrounded Safar for centuries. They have no foundation in Islamic teaching, and more than that, they contradict it. The pre-Islamic Arabs of the Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance, were deeply superstitious people. They believed that bad omens could be read from birds, from the movement of animals, from specific days and months. One of their persistent beliefs was that Safar was an ill-fated month, a time when misfortune roamed more freely. They also manipulated the sacred months through a practice called al-Nasi, intercalation, the postponement of a sacred month so that they could use it for raiding. The Quran condemned this directly, in Surah Al-Tawbah verse 37 by saying, "Indeed, the postponing of sacred months is an increase in disbelief by which those who disbelieve are led astray. They make it lawful 1 year and unlawful another year." Islam came to put an end to all of it, the manipulation of the calendar, the belief in unlucky times, the fear of months. In one of the most encompassing hadiths on the subject, the Prophet said, "There is no Adwa, no Tiara, no Hama, and no Safar." The scholars of hadith have explained that no Safar carries two related meanings, both of which are accurate. First, there is no truth to the belief that the month of Safar is inherently unlucky or that it carries any special power to harm. A month is a unit of time, belonging to Allah, possessing no independent ability to cause good or evil. Second, some scholars note that the word Safar also referred, in the pre-Islamic context, to a worm or parasite that the Arabs believed lived in the stomach and caused disease. They would attribute illness to this creature as a superstitious explanation. The Prophet abolished this belief as well. Disease comes from Allah, not from a mythological creature, and its cure comes from Him too. The core message is unambiguous. There is no such thing as an inherently unlucky month. No month, no day, no time of year carries inherent evil. Everything in creation is under Allah's command, and fortune and misfortune descend only by His will and His wisdom. Sadly, these pre-Islamic superstitions have survived and taken new forms in Muslim communities around the world. To this day, some people avoid holding weddings during Safar, refuse to start businesses, delay important journeys, and are genuinely afraid to inhabit the same home as certain family members during this month. In South Asian Muslim communities in particular, one may still encounter the belief that the first Wednesday of Safar is an especially dangerous day, a belief with no Quranic basis and no prophetic basis whatsoever. Some people also recite specific verses a specific number of times as a ritual protection from Safar's supposed evil, as though the month were an enemy to be warded off. All of these are baseless innovations. No authentic hadith prescribes any special protection against Safar specifically. The adhkar, the remembrances and supplications, that protect the believer in Ramadan are the exact same ones that protect him in Safar: Ayat al-Kursi, the 3 Quls, the morning and evening supplications, the prayer before sleep. The same Allah who protects in Muharram protects in Safar. The month itself has no power over the believer's fate. Now, a fair question arises: what about the tragedies we discussed? The massacre of the scholars at Baya Mauna, the beginning of the Prophet's final illness. Did these not happen in Safar? They did. But difficult things have happened in every month. The Battle of Badr, one of Islam's greatest triumphs, was in Ramadan. The mother of the believers Khadija died in the year of sorrow, outside the sacred months. The Prophet's infant son Ibrahim died in an ordinary month. Tragedies and blessings are distributed across the entire calendar by the wisdom of Allah, and they come to the righteous and the sinful alike, in Safar and in Ramadan, in Rajab and in Jumada. To single out Safar as the month of calamity, while ignoring that the greatest revelation in history descended in Ramadan, and that the night of power, the night greater than 1,000 months, is in Ramadan, is simply to let superstition override faith. A believer knows that every day and every month comes from Allah, and faces all of them with trust rather than dread. It is important to understand that superstition about months or days or specific times is not merely a harmless cultural color. The scholars of Islam have consistently classified the genuine belief that a specific month, day, bird, or number has the power to bring misfortune as a form of shirk, associating a created thing with a power that belongs only to Allah. The Quran in Surah At-Takbun, verse 11 is clear by stating that no calamity befalls except by the permission of Allah. And whoever believes in Allah, He guides his heart. All events, every good thing and every difficult thing, occur only by Allah's will and permission. To believe that Safar has the power to bring harm independently of Allah's decree is to believe that something in creation operates beyond His control. This is a theological error with serious implications. The Prophet made his view of tiara, superstitious omens, explicit in a hadith. Whoever turns back from his need because of an ill omen has committed shirk. Musnad Ahmad, 7045. Narrated by Abdullah ibn Masud. The hadith makes clear that allowing a superstitious omen to change one's lawful plans and intentions crosses into the territory of attributing power to the created thing. The companions asked what the expiation for this was. The Prophet said, to say, O Allah, there is no good except your good, and no omen except your omen, and there is no God but you. The remedy for superstition is the declaration of divine sovereignty. Safar is the second month of the Islamic year. Its name speaks of emptiness, but that emptiness was not of blessings or purpose. Safar is not unlucky, it is not cursed, it is not a month of uniquely distributed misfortune. The superstitions attached to it are the residue of a pagan past that the Prophet came explicitly and emphatically to dismantle. The hadith is clear, the Islamic position is clear, the same Allah who governs Ramadan governs Safar, the same protection available to the believer in Muharram is available in Safar. The same good deeds that count in Dhul Hijjah count in Safar. What Safar truly is a month like any other, an opportunity to draw closer to Allah, to serve His creation, to undertake good journeys, to make good decisions, and to live with the complete, unshakable trust in the one who holds all months, all days, all moments, and all souls in His hand. May Allah rid our hearts of every superstition. May He fill them with tawakkul, complete reliance on Him. May He bless every month of our lives, including the misunderstood months, with His nearness, His guidance, and His mercy. Amin, and Allah knows best.